Hello everyone, my name is Cornelius Nomeshi. I'm a medical doctor from Ghana. I completed my MPA degree at the Harvard Th School of Public Health this past summer. Last year, during my application process, I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Banda Khalifa, who is a friend and a senior colleague. Dr. Banda's knowledge and experience of the graduate application process made it easier to write an outstanding personal statement, also aim for the right test course and finding the right people to write recommendation letters for me. He also gave me a really good insight about the funding landscape available for me for my education. I was able to get admission into most of the top schools that I applied for, including Johns Hopkins, Columbia University, Boston University, and then Harvard University. Yeah, so if you are actually looking to advance your studies and you're looking for a good and friendly coach, I'll recommend no other person than Dr. Banda.
Hi, my name is Dr. Banda Khalifa. I'm a physician and a current Ph.D. student at the world's #1 School of Public Health, the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. I also earned a dual Master of Public Health and Master of Business Administration on a fully funded SOMA Scholar Scholarship here at the Bloomberg School after gaining admission to Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and the rest of the top schools. So, tell a friend to also tell a friend. Come along with me by subscribing to this channel as I share all the techniques and strategies for putting together a strong application package and hear from experiences from some of the most successful international scholars. I'll also invite program directors, admission committee members to share insights into what it takes to get into their program.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, depending on where you're watching us from. This is the Scholars Table. You're welcome. I'm Dr. Banda Khalifa. I'm your host for today's program. As usual, I'm a PhD student at Johns Hopkins University, and I'm eager to delve into today's enlightening conversation. Our distinguished guest today is none other than someone that I truly admire. She's a multiple award-winning epidemiologist, Professor Emily Gurley. Her dedication and transformative contributions to public health have shaped the understanding of infectious diseases and inspired countless scholars worldwide. In today's session, we will journey together through the realm of academia, talk about the PhD application process. I would also explore her experiences in the public health landscape. Among her many accomplishments, I couldn't gather everything. Professor Gurley has served as a co-director for the Child Health and Mortality Prevention Surveillance Site in Bangladesh, which spearheads efforts to understand and prevent child mortality. Furthermore, her collaboration with the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention for the Global Disease Detection Program embodied her commitment to global health. We all remember during the 2019-2020 COVID-19 pandemic, there was a very famous course that almost everybody took it, even those with no public health background, found the course useful. She was the architect behind that course, and since then that course has gathered a lot of awards, including excellence in the U.S. COVID-19 public health practice, and then the outstanding Coursera course for 2020. If I say I'm going to talk about her credentials, we wouldn't finish today's session. So let me just invite Professor Emily to join us on the Scholars Table. Professor Gurley, good afternoon, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation to join this program. We are truly honored.
Good afternoon, Dr. Khalifa, and it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for the very generous introduction.
Great. I know, we have a couple of people watching us on Facebook. There are a couple of people on YouTube. There are others also watching us on LinkedIn. Hopefully, we'll have the time to answer some of their questions. I want to start off by, asking you about your journey into epidemiology. Why did you decide to do epidemiology, and what is so intriguing about epidemiology?
Sure, I'm happy to talk about that. And actually, my journey is a bit odd, probably, to epidemiology. So when I was 11 years old, I left the United States with my family. And we lived in Asia and Central America and Europe. And then I came back to the United States for university. And at that time, the only thing I knew that I wanted to do was to travel. So I studied history at university. And then I joined the U.S. Peace Corps, which you may have heard about.
Yeah.
It's a 2-year program. And I spent 2 years in Romania, where I worked on an HIV prevention program and also with the first hospice in Romania. So Romania is where I found public health, the idea of public health. That's also where I found my husband. He was also a Peace Corps volunteer there. So that changed my life in a few ways. So after that, I pursued a master's degree in public health at Emory University. And their MPH is a 2-year program, which allows you a summer to do some primary data collection. And I went to Bangladesh to do my thesis work. I worked with an organization there called BRAC. And that's when I realized that I really love data and data analysis and research. And I thought, okay, I was already convinced that I wanted to work in public health, but then I saw, this is what I want to do. I want to do public health research. When I graduated, or shortly after graduating, my husband was offered a job working for USAID in Bangladesh. So we moved to Bangladesh. And then I started looking for networking, trying to find people who were doing public health research there, because I had a lot of interest. I had time, but I was still green. I didn't have much experience. So that's when I found the ICDDRB and a man named Dr. Rob Bryman, who was working for the US CDC at the time, and he was seconded to Bangladesh. He offered me a job and said, okay, I'm starting a new program on infectious diseases and vaccine sciences. I can use your skills in the program on the administrative side. And in your free time, you can learn how to do public health research. He said our program is on infectious diseases. Have you worked much in infectious diseases? I said, no, but I'm interested to learn. So that began my journey, I would say, in epidemiology and infectious diseases. And that was in 2003.
Wow.
So maybe a few months after that, there was an outbreak of encephalitis, and the government of Bangladesh contacted him and the ICDDRB for assistance with investigating the outbreak. And he said to me, "Oh, would you like to go? You can maybe assist in the investigation and learn how this is done." I quickly said yes, and that was when I said, okay, I'm going to be an epidemiologist. This is my path. It was very difficult work, but very compelling. I mean, the public health problem and need was urgent. And it was really an amazing experience to feel like you had something to contribute to solving that problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then I decided I was going to be an epidemiologist. So I spent 6 years then working at ICDDRB doing that outbreak investigation, setting up surveillance systems. And then I came back to Johns Hopkins. I came back to the US to pursue a Ph.D. in epidemiology. After finishing that, so in 2011, I went back to the ICDDRB again for 6 more years. And I was the director of their emerging infections program.
Mm-hmm.
And then I joined, officially became an academic and joined Johns Hopkins in 2017.
Wow.
So that's my path.
Mm-hmm. That has been an interesting path, and that explains why you love Asia that much. Like some of your major projects have been in Asia. That's certainly an interesting part. So it's not like you had a health background. You didn't do anything health related, and yet you're doing so well. It's amazing. Reading the stuff that you've done, it's really inspiring. But I remember in the midst of the pandemic, there was this course that everybody was doing. Everybody I met said, "Oh, contact tracing course." What really motivated you and your team to develop such a course at that particular point in time?
So I've been studying bat-borne pathogens and emerging pathogens that have the capacity to transmit between people my whole career, mostly on Nipah virus. And so I knew that contact tracing was going to be a key component of pandemic response, particularly before we had any, very early on, before we had any other tools. And it's an approach that I've used in my career. I know how it works. I know how ideally it should work for COVID. I also already had experience putting together a Coursera course. And so very early in the pandemic, I believe maybe in March, I started putting together a course for the Baltimore City Health Department. We work closely with them through the group called SORT, the Surveillance Outbreak Response Team. And so we were already working with them on contact tracing, and I was putting together materials for them. And then I got a call from Josh Sharfstein, who is at the School of Public Health.
Yeah.
And Bloomberg Philanthropies was really interested in developing a large contact tracing course and whole initiative for New York State. And they said, would you like to help develop the course for that? The idea is that there's an online course. People interested in becoming contact tracers can take that course, and that gives them a jump start into the application process and training and being hired. And I said, well, sure, I'm already working on a course, so let's formalize it and get it up and running. And I worked with other colleagues, here at the school, to bring the materials together in record time. We developed and recorded the course, and I think 3 weeks it was ready, which is, if you've ever developed a course, it usually takes much longer than that. So we didn't really sleep, but we knew how important it was to get it out quickly. I thought that, it was important to know just how people interact. What do you say when you're a contact tracer? What are some of the things people say to you? But parts of the course that I really liked that we added were about the ethics.
Yeah.
Strong ethical considerations. Anytime we're intervening in public health, we have to really be considerate and thoughtful about what we're doing. And also the skills in listening to people. It's useful in daily life, but especially in a time of crisis. So I was very proud of what we were able to do, and how useful it was, I think, to many people.
Yeah. I think that course was incredibly useful for most professionals. I remember I had to do like twice, because I did it like when it came on Coursera. And then I joined the Baltimore City Health Department as one of their case investigation managers, and we were required to go through the course again. So it was so it was really helpful.
I was gonna say also, one of the things that we really insisted on and that I was happy about was that we were able to put all the materials online, so that anyone could take it, amend it, develop their own course, put it in their own language, make it relevant for their context. So that we developed not just a course, but a resource for anybody who wanted to develop their own. And so, for example, in Chile, in Spain, they took those materials and made courses for their national programs, because we were able to make it free and available to people.
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised it won multiple awards, included Coursera's most outstanding course, or outstanding achievement award for Coursera. That was really innovative. But beside, I know like there are still challenges in public health, and people would love to learn practical stuff, how useful some courses can be in their daily lives. Are there any plans to develop any other courses for public health professionals in general?
The short answer is yes. So we developed a second contact tracing course that was more about evaluating the impact and effectiveness of those programs. And I'm proud of that course because we also developed a tool, a Shiny app that goes along with that course. So we said, okay, if you're a public health manager, you can take some metrics from your program, you customize a model and get some information about how to improve. Another recent course that I launched with colleagues here, again, Dr. Amy Wieselowski was on this course. It's called Infectious Disease Transmission Models for Decision Makers. So one thing we learned in the pandemic is that infectious disease models are really important for helping us think through scenarios, forecast what might happen next, to help us prepare. But at the same time, many people may not really understand how they work, how to interpret the information that comes from them. And so we saw a real gap that we wanted to fill with this course. So it's aimed at public health decision makers, anybody working at any level in public health who's making decisions about programs, who might use models or modeled output to make those decisions. And we made it without any equations. Okay, Okay, it's not a math course.
Yes.
Still, we want to tell you the concepts and what are the important questions to ask when you're understanding models. So there's that one. And I have an idea for another larger course that I'm going to try to do next year. And that's about training One Health investigation teams for outbreak investigation. So stay tuned
Great.
for that.
Yeah. That seems like an exciting concept because a lot more people are getting to understand the concept of One Health and how integral it is for getting ready for the next pandemic. Okay, so we've spoken about some of the courses and some of the projects that you're working on. Are there any specific project that aside the courses that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, it's okay. Good question. Well, I'm biased. I think my research is interesting. So what am I going to say? But I'll tell you about a couple of studies I'm doing now that I feel very passionate about. One is you mentioned at the beginning the CHAMP study,
Yeah.
Child Health and Mortality Prevention Surveillance, and it's a collection of sites, most of which are in Africa, in fact, and we're using really novel approaches to understand cause of death, including post-mortem tissue sampling, which is a very sensitive issue, as you can imagine. In any culture, it's a very
Yeah.
sensitive issue how we care for the dead, especially our babies and our children. But the goal of the project is to end child mortality, to prevent child mortality, and the rationale is that we are unlikely to make more progress unless we truly understand the causes. And the
Yeah.
current data sets we have now from verbal autopsy studies, etc., they're not quite good enough. So we've embarked on this very ambitious plan to try to understand. It's going very well. And it's very multidisciplinary, as you can imagine. We have
Yeah.
huge teams working on community engagement. We're using the data for action in as much as we can in real time. So we have close links with public health agencies in all the countries where we're working, so that the data can be available to them for programs. Very active. I'm very proud of that work. And we've recently also launched a study in Bangladesh where we're looking at the frequency and pathways of transmission of Nipah virus into livestock and peri-domestic animals. So we know from serosurveys that it happens. We know it's happening around us. But how often? How is it happening? Those are important questions to answer if we want to understand really the ecology of that virus and its pandemic potential.
Interesting. A lot of exciting projects to look out for. So yeah, most of my listeners, even though they are public health professionals, a lot more are also prospective students or prospective applicants, and they are always asking questions. How can we make sure that our application is strong? How can we get into Hopkins? How can we get into other, strong programs? And so once I have you here, I'll take the opportunity to ask a couple of questions regarding graduate school application. And I've known you've mentored and advised a lot of students through their PhD journey. So imagine like a student applying to a PhD program, let's say in public health. What are some of the key qualities that the admissions committee are looking out for in order to say, okay, this student, it would be a great candidate for our program?
Yeah. So I can understand why there's so much interest in this topic. I remember when I was aspiring, I was applying to PhD programs myself, so I can understand. And I think there are three things that any program is looking for when they're looking through applications.
Mm-hmm.
The first question they'll have about any applicant is this applicant well prepared academically for our program?
Okay.
So do you have the prerequisite courses? Have you taken difficult courses? Did you do well in those courses? Do you have the preparation that convinces us that you're going to do well here? We're looking for a good fit on both sides.
Okay.
And it would be, you don't do a favor to anyone if you're not sure that this is a good place for them to study. So you want
That's true.
to, they're looking to be sure that you're well prepared for that academic journey. The second thing is you have to have a very convincing argument about why you want to do this. Do you know what you're getting yourself into? Do you know why you're going to do this? Okay, it's a huge time and resource
commitment. Yes.
And that's really, when you're writing your statement about why am I doing this, we're looking for, someone who's passionate about what they're doing, but also they understand, like in epidemiology, you understand what epidemiology is.
Yeah.
You have enough experience to know what you're doing. It's not I might like this, let me explore. No, you have to really know what you're doing and why you have to have a PhD.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to be convinced that you know those things. Okay. So that's number 2. Because it's difficult, right? And so if you don't really know why you're doing it, it's hard to make it through, honestly.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to have that reason, like, this is why I'm doing. And then the third thing is, can we train you well?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have the faculty and do we have areas of research that align with your interests? So let's say maybe you're a fantastic scholar and you're very passionate about what you want to do, but you want to do something where we don't have anybody working in that area.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's one program somewhere, but maybe that study is going to end, and then what are you going to do because you're passionate about that one thing? So we have to also be convinced that we can train you well for what you want to do.
Okay.
And that's where knowing what's going on in the department, what some faculty interests are, can help you write something that aligns well with their interests in what they're doing, because then they could say, oh, look, they want to learn about, this pathogen and this kind of transmission. That's what we do. Okay, maybe this will work.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the main 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
That they're looking at. The recommendation letters can also be important. And those are things, really you're looking there about potential competency. You want to see that they've worked with people and those people say, oh yeah, they're good at what they do.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
They have skills. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think it's you've summarized it perfectly. So, one quality is that is assessed is to know whether the student is well prepared for the program, and being prepared for the program could also mean academic preparation, because you don't want to get into a program that you struggle to go through. I think that make a lot of sense. And then, why are you doing this, or why are you putting yourself through this stress? through this trauma? So that is also a good question to answer. And then, can you be trained? I think that is also very compelling, because oftentimes people even reach out to advisors without really knowing what the the potential advisors are doing. So that could be a stumbling block. So talking about can you be trained? I think I want to link it up with the essence of sending emails to potential advisors. I know in certain fields, cold emails are like very necessary or very important, because if you don't have an advisor say yes, it's very difficult for you to get into a program. But for a large program like Hopkins, or let's say Harvard, or let's say Boston, how much weight do they put on cold emails, and what are like the essence of cold emails in landing a PhD slot?
Yeah. In terms of landing a slot, I don't know how useful it is, but because and different programs proceed in different ways, and there are key differences between U.S. programs and European programs, for example,
Yeah.
where you're in Europe, your relationship with an advisor who wants to take you on, and their approval of your plan is the thing that gets you into the program.
Okay.
Right? That's the main thing. At Hopkins, it's quite different. You go through a competitive process with everybody. It doesn't matter who you know or what, you're in the mix with everybody else. And so, you're not assigned an advisor until you're already admitted.
Yes.
And really, it's not like there aren't enough advisors for PhD students. In fact, compared to the huge faculty we have here, we have relatively few PhD students. So finding an advisor to work with isn't a big issue, right? That's not the issue that's happening. There's a rigorous process outside of any cold emails to anybody, to any faculty. But I would say that reaching out to faculty can have many benefits. One is just networking.
Yeah.
And this depends faculty by faculty. Some people will never answer emails. Okay. You should be prepared for this. But, me personally, I try to answer. I keep office hours for prospective students. It's not a lot, but I have them. So I could say, okay, in 2 months, I have an opening if you want to chat. So I would advise, when you reach out to someone, you should reach out expressing interest. Ask, like, sometimes I hear, people say, like, do you have an opening in your lab for PhD students? I was like, well, that's not how it works here. Also, no. So then I just say, no, I don't. And that's the end. Sometimes students reach out and say, well, they understand, they've read what I do, and they say, I'm interested in what you do. I'm pursuing. Do you have any career advice? Do you have time to chat?
Okay.
Then I could say, oh, yeah, let's find some time. And maybe, our workplace is very dynamic. New projects come up all the time, new opportunities all the time. So if you can get some time from a faculty member just to talk about career trajectory, that can be really useful, even if it's not like, oh yes, I'm gonna get you into the PhD program. I can't guarantee this. We don't, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
But those links can be useful, and they can help you think about the program. They may even know about other programs that you should apply to, or
you should
other
apply.
strategies. So reaching out to people is fine. It's a good idea. But it's not. There's no secret key to a PhD admission.
Yeah, I think, yeah, okay. So because a lot of students feel like, if they are not getting responses from yeah, faculty that they've emailed, it means that they are not favorite candidates. But as you perfectly explained, cold email doesn't necessarily puts you at any advantage ahead of the other applicants. But in terms of your own networking and getting clarity for your direction would be helpful. And I'm glad that you've also, differentiated from other programs in Europe where the advisor may be like, the key person who would say, "I want to work with this person." Then you would get a slot. And I know like recommendation letters are also something that is quite important in terms of putting together some core competencies that the admissions committee will read and say, okay, it looks like this person has a good work ethic, or he's somebody we can work with. What advice would you give to students who are selecting recommenders? Do they need to have a specific guideline or criteria for selecting recommenders? Do certain recommendations have bigger impact than others in terms of not the content per se, but in terms of who is writing it?
So I think the most compelling letters are written by recommenders who understand the PhD process.
Okay.
So they have PhDs, or they're working in academic setting and they understand what's required for the program. They worked closly with you. So sometimes you see letters and they have a letter from a very prestigious person, or a very famous scientist. But it's a few sentences and it says, I'm sure this person is fine. They're very good, I'm sure. And they're not so compelling. You want someone who's worked with you, who can say detailed things about you and working with you and your promise in the field. So find someone who understands the process and who also knows you well and can speak at least to one aspect of your application well. All of your recommenders may not know everything. That's fine. That's why you can have multiple, right? Maybe one really knows about your analytical skills, and another one saw you in a leadership role. So you can pick multiple recommenders to fill those different gaps. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think that answers the question.
One more thing. When you ask your recommender for a letter, give them some idea of like some of the things you want them to talk about.
Okay.
So, for example, if you really want them to, be sure and mention, oh, don't you remember I did this and I did this? Because your recommenders are just people. They won't remember everything they ever, did with you, or everything that you ever did with them. So give them an outline, like some bullets of things. Please don't forget to mention this and this and this. And that's really helpful when they're writing the letter.
Okay. That's really helpful. I know, like most people say, your statement of purpose is perhaps one of the most important aspects of applying to a graduate program. In your opinion, what makes a statement of purpose stand out, or what are some of the key elements that applicants must include in their statement of purpose in order for us to say, okay, this is compelling enough to be considered?
In your statement of purpose is, it's your opportunity to tell your story. Why do you want to do this? Do you think you're ready? Why do you think you're ready? Why would you spend the next 4 years of your life doing this instead of something else?
Yeah.
And the most compelling statements are those where you would read it and say, oh, we have to do everything we can for this person. Look at their potential. They're so passionate. They're going to change the world. How do we get them here? Right? That's what you want someone to think by the end. And so the more detailed it is, the better. At the same time, when you're joining a PhD program, you may not know exactly what you want to do, exactly the study you want to do. You don't, it's not those kind of details that you have to include in your statement of purpose. You're coming here to learn after all, right? You don't, it's not that you have to have the whole thing planned out, but you need to present some compelling ideas about what you're going to do with a PhD and why you need it.
Awesome. So I know at the PhD level, most of the time, publications come in. How significant is the role of prior publications in improving one's chances of admission to a PhD program?
I think they're pretty important. And here's why. First of all, PhD programs are notoriously bad at training you to be a scientific writer. So as much as possible, you should learn to do this before you come. It's very difficult to learn as you're doing your dissertation. So if you can demonstrate that you already know how to write before you come to the program, that's a key part of the committee, the admissions committee, seeing that, okay, this candidate is well prepared for our program because they already know, they have some experience with writing. So that's really important. If it's first author publication, then that shows even better that, okay, you probably led this analysis. You've been very involved in this paper. You completed something.
Yeah.
That's great, right? That it's not easy to publish a paper. So those are all good to see. If you have co-author publications, that's also good, because then we see, like, okay, you worked on a team and your contribution was valued enough that you were offered the co-authorship role. So both are important, but I would say, at least in the most prestigious programs, most of the successful candidates have multiple first author papers when they're applying.
Yeah.
It's the reality.
Yeah. I think that is true, because if I look at my cohort and the amazing stuff they've done, I realize how competitive the program is in order for you to get in. And you mentioned the idea of making sure that the program you're applying, you've aligned, your research aligns with at least someone in the department or someone in the school who is doing that particular project. But how can a student align their research interest with a potential advisor? Must you be super specific, or you can give a general idea as to where you want to work? And then is it possible to pull teams together from like totally different departments to work on your interest?
I think one of the things I really like about Hopkins is that you can work with anyone. Once you're here, you can pull faculty from all across the school, any department. You put together the team that works best for you. So once you're here, there are no barriers to any kind of collaboration like that. I think that's great. I think that's the way we should train, right?
Yeah.
We should be working in multidisciplinary teams if we can. It makes the most sense. I think when you're applying, just another piece of advice is that even at the same school, different departments may have different selection criteria that they're thinking about,
Yeah.
right? So, for example, in epidemiology, they want people with experience with epidemiology. Okay. In international health, international experience will be weighted more heavily than
More.
in the epi department.
Yeah.
So, or in environmental health, right? They may not get as many people working on a certain disease, and they may really want students working on that, whereas epi gets a lot. So, you think about different programs and how they may view your application differently, even within the same school. There can be
Mm-hmm.
differences. And again, at many schools, some of the core courses that you take and some of the things that you can do are essentially the same, even if you're in different departments. So you can give yourself more chances sometimes by even applying to multiple departments if it's allowed.
Okay. Okay. Great. I think we've exhausted much of the critical components of the PhD application. I want us to move a bit into the state of public health, the current state of public health, and I really want to explore this field because it's been a challenging couple of years for public health professionals and for people who truly trust the process of decision making, especially in public health. But COVID came and COVID changed a lot of things. In your own analysis, how has the COVID-19 pandemic reshaped the landscape of public health, and what lessons do you think we must learn from this pandemic?
That's a long podcast to talk about all that, Vonda. But I'll mention two things. Okay. I just personally, I would say, prior to the pandemic, when I told people I'm an epidemiologist, no one really knew what that meant. Now everyone knows what that means.
Yeah.
And they also have very strong feelings about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Either they're very excited and interested and thankful, or they're pretty negative. Like, oh, the epidemiologists, they're not, they made really bad decisions. So we're not, we're in the spotlight still in ways that we weren't before, which carry some added responsibilities, I think.
Yeah.
I think that I'll say, let's see, lessons learned. I think that's still playing out. Whether we've learned lessons or not will be
Oh,
learned.
no, yeah.
I'm gonna be a little, I don't know yet. I'll say I'm not sure yet, but I think it highlighted the difficulties of weighing risks and benefits of different options, prevention options. And it highlighted the difficulty of taking into account the risks and benefits of those prevention strategies, not just from a public health perspective, but from a societal perspective, economic perspective.
Mm-hmm.
What we do, we come from the public health perspective, but the impacts of those strategies are beyond public health.
Yeah.
How do we weigh those? How do we come up with the best decisions possible? It's beyond just our area, and we need, I think, to have better ways of doing that, of collaborating with other sectors to really weigh through the options.
Yeah, that's true. And for me, another essential thing that I've learned is that misinformation travels very, very fast and effectively. And we've seen it throughout the pandemic, even till now. There's so much mistrust in the system, and if I scroll through Twitter, sometimes I get so worried about how big players in the industry, those with huge platforms, are propagating things that they know for sure is not true, or perhaps they don't know it's not true, but the scientific community is not doing enough to get to those people. How do you believe we can rebuild trust in public health and deal with this emergent threat to public health?
Yeah. I mean, you said, misinformation or, can travel fast. And sometimes that's because it seems more scandalous. Sometimes, the truth is a bit boring, or difficult to process. So we know it from our personal lives too, right? A good scandalous rumor, gossip travels fast. So, there's an appeal to it. I rely a lot on my own personal experience with these kinds of issues, really on the ground, so investigating Nipah outbreaks for many, many years. Through our investigations, we knew and we understood how transmission was happening. So humans can be infected from bats. They share food with bats, and that's how a human can become infected. And then that virus can sometimes spread between people. And so we knew this. Okay, we had the evidence from a biological perspective. But when we would go to outbreaks and talk to people and give them messages in the best way we could, okay, this is what we know, this is what's happening, please do this, please do this. And then we worked very closely with anthropologists. I think this is key. And they would go back to those communities and say, okay, what did you learn? What did you know? What did the people tell you? And did you believe it? And they said, yeah, they said it's transmitted, but I don't believe what they said because I had contact with the patient. I didn't get sick.
Yeah.
So I don't believe it. They said it's a virus from a bat. Come on. Those bats live near us all the time. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't believe it. So we took that to heart and we said, okay, if they don't understand, then we have failed. We have to go back and keep trying to do better. And after round after round after round, finally, we learned how to talk to people and how to meet them where they are in their knowledge and then bring them to help them understand what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
And it's not that, people are smart. They can see the world around them, right? And if what you're saying, they can't understand how it matches with their experience, they're going to have questions, of course. We all would. So when I think about misinformation, I think about it like this. Like, there is true things happening in the world. There's the truth. It's just there. Scientists try to use our methods to understand what it is. Sometimes we're poking around in the dark. It's a process to try to uncover truth.
Yes.
What's true? What do we believe? Why? It's messy. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So we're trying to work out what is the truth. Okay. Now, when you say misinformation, you mean someone doesn't understand what the truth is and they're saying something that's not true, or intentionally or unintentionally. The problem is sometimes we also don't know. We have to really stay humble.
Yeah.
And I think that the way to combat this best is to keep engaging as much as possible. Talk to people who are wondering why did you say that? Why are they saying this? Keep open lines of conversation and communication open, especially with people who disagree with us, because that's we have to have those conversations. I think mistrust comes most when our response to misinformation is suppression of.
Suppression.
So I think to improve trust, we have to have difficult conversations with people who disagree with us. And that's based on my own personal experience, where this is how we had success. We said, "Oh, you don't believe us? Yeah, okay, fair enough. Tell me why." And then I get to try to persuade some more, and I'm successful or not. So that's what I think. It's really not easy, and we have social media, we have
Yes.
platforms. We don't know how to use these well. We don't
Yeah.
know. They're too
Yeah.
new. We really don't know how to use this technology. Okay.
So would you agree that we should have like formal debates on critical issues like this? Because like recently there was a huge argument on Twitter about one scientist or vaccinologist who was dared to engage one political figure in a debate about COVID-19 and vaccines in general, and most of the scientific community were saying it is not worth it because the person has already made up his mind. He's intentionally spreading falsehood, so there is no point giving him that credibility. Do you feel that should be the case, or irrespective of the person's stance, we should engage them in public?
Again, in my own life, yeah, I engage with people who disagree with me all the time, and I think it's part of a healthy society to do that. I don't want to be too critical of people who aren't willing, who don't think themselves that I don't want to do that. That's fine. You know, it's an uncomfortable position.
Yeah.
So, but I think also when I'm not sure. I'm not sure the reason to engage is to change that person's mind. I mean, maybe great, but it's also to have a public forum to counter arguments. When I hear someone saying something that I know is false, and oh, come on, but this, I want to jump in and say, okay, can I have my time now? Because for things that we know to be true very well, the evidence is strong and the evidence can speak for itself.
Yeah.
And again, there are risks and benefits to both approaches. I'm not saying that okay, if you engage, it's only a good thing and you have nothing to worry. No, there are risks of that approach, and I understand the critique of why people don't want to do that. But there are major risks of not doing that also.
Yeah.
And my personal opinion is that more discussion is better.
Yeah.
As a general rule.
Well, that's true. The more discussion, the better. But public health education, and I mean graduate education in general, is changing. We've seen a lot of digital platforms, a lot of AI coming in, and institutions are worried how this is going to impact their way of teaching. But specifically in the field of public health, how do you see the future of public health education evolving?
I think that digital platforms like Coursera, right, where we have these courses up, I love them because you can reach so many people. You can. I love the idea of knowledge being accessible to people. I mean, this is the same reason why I think we should discuss more, not less.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, uh, put your ideas out there in the world. Most people will never come to Johns Hopkins to sit in the lecture of my class. It's the reality. Okay. But um, if we can, leave something online that can be accessible to anyone with an internet connection, to me, that's very powerful. Um, and we can inspire, interest people in public health as a career. And we can also, as you mentioned, with the contact tracing course, people who didn't work in public health took it just to understand, what are these public health people talking about? What is contact tracing? What is it not? I think that's so useful. So I do see an important role for those kinds of online courses. They're they're not well. Um, it's very hard to get a very in-depth understanding of a topic, like at a graduate level with those kinds of courses. But still, I think for many purposes, they are just invaluable and such a wonderful tool. In fact, the Coursera gave the contact tracing course an innovation award, which I thought was really funny because there's nothing innovative about contact tracing at all. It's been done for like 100 years or more. The innovative part is the Coursera platform. So I think they deserve the innovation award, personally.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, what other emerging issues in public health are you or do you think is pressing that we should be focusing on? What other, for example, uh, emerging infections are you thinking of? What are other threats to public health are you thinking of?
Uh, phew. Um, well, I think it's important to keep in mind the big perspective. Like, I work on a project on child mortality. In the past 20 or 30 years, look at the huge progress we've made in child mortality. Many public health issues, we've made huge progress. Um, so I think we have to keep the progress in mind and that we've made good strides. So there's every reason to be optimistic, to make about future of human health. Um, I don't think we still are very well prepared for pandemics. Uh, our We're limited by our primate brains, right? We focus on what is immediate to us.
Yeah.
Um, so we should be preparing now, thinking about how we prevent future pandemics. I'm very interested in spillover prevention. Um, I think in terms of emerging threats, antimicrobial resistance and the possibility of the end of the antibiotic era is that would be pretty scary. I don't think we have a handle on that well enough at all. So I think we need more time and energy on that. But ultimately, so much of health improvement is really improving people's everyday life. If the more people are lifted out of absolute poverty, the better it is. We can design interventions that try to improve health even while people are living in poverty and very difficult conditions. But if we can change the whole society and lift people out of poverty, that's even better. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Again, the connection between public health and other sectors is very strong.
it's very strong. Okay, my last question from me. I think we've gone past our time. So for young professionals who are coming up, future public health professionals, how do you think they can effectively equip themselves to be more effective in handling future public health crisis? What should they be doing that would set them up for the future?
So in a crisis, what's needed are leaders who are willing to take initiative, who have expertise and time to give. Um, so if there is a crisis, you should know, okay, what are my strengths? What do I have to offer? And then you don't wait for an invitation. You look for ways to offer that and to help and to contribute. Um, I think uh, what's very important, well, in public health crises, any kind of crises, probably also just generally in life, um, rule number one is don't freak out. You have to keep a calm head because that's the only way you're going to figure out how to solve the issue at hand. And I think, especially in public health crises, that kind of um, competent but calm leadership is very important to have. Um,
Great, great, great. Thank you so much for your time. But before I let you go, I have a couple of questions that uh, being asked from the audience.
mm.
Um, there's Femi Oluja says that I was surprised to hear the most successful applicants have few first authored publications. I didn't know that first authorship counts significantly. Please correct me if I misunderstood her. Yeah, so I think what you said was that if you have publications, it's a plus, and even so, if it's a first authored publication, it indicates that you have some elements of qualities that PhD programs are already looking out for. So that becomes a plus. But if you have also co-authored some papers and you're not the first author, it also shows that you can work in teams and you'll be able to produce quality work. So for me, I think that is what Professor Gurley was talking about. Okay, he's also asking, can an applicant with 4 to 5 co-authored articles have a chance?
Yeah, this is an impossible question to answer. And again, the PhD game, okay, getting a PhD is about numbers. You should be applying to many programs. There are many good programs out there. Don't make the mistake of focusing just on one program. Uh, there are many good places to train. And so the answer to that question will vary by program and school. And there's no good way to answer it. And it depends on all the other parts of your application as well. So um,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
depends. But
yeah.
that's it's good experience. It shows you've been working on a productive team.
Yeah. But as you've indicated, it depends on the school, it depends on the year, it depends on the cohort of applicants. As there are so many variables at play here. It seems like we've answered most of the questions, in our conversation. But somebody's asking if it's possible to get into a PhD with a bachelor's degree. I haven't seen one yet. I don't know whether it's possible at Hopkins, especially in our
There,
department.
in our department, it would be pretty rare. That tends to happen more often in the hard sciences. in laboratory sciences.
Yeah.
Um, in epidemiology for our PhD program, we usually like to see that an applicant has been working as an epidemiologist and working in public health for multiple years. So that can be hard to do with a bachelor's. Uh, has happened, but it's a rare path. In part because it's hard to make the case that you really understand epidemiology and why you want to do this, and that you're well prepared for graduate work if you've never done epidemiology or any graduate work.
Yeah.
It's a harder sell.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, I think we've come to an end of our program. We've taken more than an hour of your schedule. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. Before you go, any last words for our viewers?
I'm so excited to always to connect with people who are excited about public health and interested in public health careers. And I'm really grateful for the invitation to join, Banda. Thank you so much.
This has been an enlightening conversation with Professor Emily Gurley, who I so much admire. She's done so much work in the field of public health, especially in the infectious disease space. If you joined us late, you can go back and rewatch the whole content. We spoke about the issue of graduate school application and also the current state of public health. So that is what we have. Next week, we're going to have another enlightening session with one of our stories that inspire. If you are new to the family, this is the Scholars Table. Dr. Banda Khalifa is my name. You can check us out on YouTube, Dr. Banda Khalifa, on LinkedIn, and also on all other social media handles. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you get updates and tips on your graduate school journey and how to stay productive in your professional life. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Banda Khalifa saying goodbye. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone, my name is I'm a medical doctor from Ghana. I completed my MPA degree at the Harvard Th School of Public Health this past summer. Last year, during my application process, I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Banda Khalifa, who is a friend and a senior colleague. Dr. Banda's knowledge and experience of the graduate application process made it easier to write an outstanding personal statement, also aim for the right test course and finding the right people to write recommendation letters for me. He also gave me a really good insight about the funding landscape available for me for my education. I was able to get admission into most of the top schools that I applied for, including Johns Hopkins, Columbia University, Boston University, and then Harvard University. Yeah, so if you are actually looking to advance your studies and you're looking for a good and friendly coach, I would recommend no other person than Dr. Banda.
Hi, my name is Dr. Banda Khalifa. I'm a physician and a current PhD student at the world's #1 School of Public Health, the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. I also earned a dual Master of Public Health, a Master of Business Administration on a fully funded SOMA Scholarship here at the Bloomberg School after gaining admission to Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and the rest of the top schools. So, tell a friend to also tell a friend. Come along with me by subscribing to this channel as I share all the techniques and strategies for putting together a strong application package and hear from experiences from some of the most successful international scholars. I'll also invite program directors, admission committee members to share insights into what it takes to get into their program.